Hello.
Hey,
Hi.
how are you?
Not too very bad. How are you?
I'm good. It's nice to see you.
Likewise. It's a nice spot.
Thank you.
That's
Uh,
cozy.
um, eh, there was a time where I had this place on Airbnb,
Oh
and
wow.
you were coming through Milwaukee, and you
Whoa.
you sent me a message on Airbnb and was
Whoa.
like, "Can I stay at your place?" But I was like out of town that day, and I like didn't have time to switch it over. And you were like, "I'm like a musician," and I was like, "This guy does not know that I very much know who he is."
Nice. That's cool. That was with Big Thief? I guess, yeah. I
No,
don't
I
think I've
think
ever
that
played.
I think that was on a solo tour. I think
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
that was in 2018. Yeah.
Far out. That's a trip.
So that
I
was
think I
fun.
remember that. Now that I see it, I think it's imprinted on my mind.
Right,
It's a
right.
little spot.
Um, well, I Two Saviors is um it is the album that I have listened to the most this year so
Uh-huh.
far. I really love it. And as I was listening, there's all these like little things that go through the album that I love, and I was like, I would love to just ask Buck about these things.
Hell yeah. Yeah, there's a lot
So
of hidden stuff in there.
yeah, um, I think one of the most interesting themes that goes throughout, and the a little bit is the different colored eyes, blue on the left and hazel on the right, or brown on the right. It shows up in Candle, in Second Sight, and in Dream Daughter.
Mm.
It's like this little thread. What is what what's going on there?
I guess I've always just felt like I've never met another human being with two colored eyes, but every time I meet a dog with two different colored eyes, it just reminds me of the magic within us. Like this, it just feels like this impossible thing that can only be explained with magic somehow. And um, within this form that we've all come to understand or like believe is yeah, something normal. There's this magic within, I suppose. And like it just feels like the materialization of like perceiving the world through duality and through something, yeah, more evasive and like or more elusive, excuse me. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, I do have a friend that has two different colored eyes.
Oh
Uh,
wow.
yeah. And so I sent it to her and I was like, hey, you should listen to this because it seems to be about you.
Wow.
um,
I've always wished I had two different colored eyes. If I could change one thing about myself. I
would it be blue on the left and hazel on the right?
think it would probably be blue and green.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Um, also, I love in Ham on White. I just I love the concept of that song. I love the opening line. I haven't eaten since 1995.
Hmm.
What, like, how are we supposed to take that line?
I mean, I think that was just like a really honest, um, essentially like just journal entry of this dynamic that I had with my partner at the time, and um, and throughout this whole record and on my first record, I one thing that I'm really fascinated with, or one thing that I adore in human relationships is how like we rag on each other, like the sass and like the hard time we give each other, and how like that can be a vessel for affection.
That's
Um,
so interesting.
through sarcasm and through but it's like this deep kind of inside joke that we can share with our loved ones, and um often it's self-deprecating or vice versa. And so yeah, that's just a line from that sphere, I suppose, of like just making a joke out of my own um hunger, I suppose. But
I think that that is so funny, and that's such an interesting idea and concept that I never really hear anybody express,
yeah,
especially in song, because
yeah.
it because it is such a personal thing.
Yeah, but it's also like even if you're looking at it from the outside and you have no context for that inside joke or for that like subtle affection, it still says it all. Like I love writing songs where that's pretty much all I say sometimes. Like that's the only information I give you. It's just like as if you're dropping in the middle of a conversation of two lovers, for instance, giving each other a hard time. like on the song Pareidolia, that whole last verse is basically just these two lovers kind of ragging on each other about like, you know, scaring each other dressed up as a ghost, waiting for her in the shower and like, etc. And yeah, I love that.
I do too. I that's so interesting. Um, there's a bit of that in Two Saviors too, which is my favorite song on the record right now.
Thank you.
Um, and it because it feels it is like you're dropped into this situation,
Yeah,
and it is like I'm listening to it and I am like, what was going on when you wrote this, or what is the situation that we're dropped into there?
yeah. That song was more confessional, just as a process of healing through a breakup, essentially, and it kind of mapped 3 chapters of my process. I wrote the first couple verses at the very beginning of unwinding in this relationship, and then I kind of reached the end of that map. You know, I think that that's a song that's an example of how like writing a song can be a map for oneself through a healing process or through a challenging experience. And I kind of reached the end of my perspective and just put the song away for a time, maybe for 6 months or so, and then as the relationship kind of moved into another chapter, I was able to reapproach the song and write another couple verses in the chorus. And then again, I needed to put it away. And then finally, I returned to it almost a year later, once I had completely healed, or, you know, relatively, once I was fully embodied in a new form and finished the song. So that was more of like an inner dialogue with myself than one with another.
That is also such a fascinating way to travel along with you on
Mm,
that journey. I didn't even I will really the next time I listen to that will be such a different experience
thank you.
having known that. I
That's interesting you brought that up though in the context of conversation within song because that song is very conversational in the lyrics. But with Two Saviors specifically, I think I'm more speaking to myself. I'm almost like,
mm,
yeah, I'm helping myself through the something, you know, and conversing with myself and giving myself comfort. And but it's it's in the form of conversation and self-reflection, I suppose.
and there is that line hold me Joe, and I love um I am a person who likes to be held.
Mm,
You know, I would always be Little Spoon,
yeah,
and there's also like in Big Thief there are there are times where you talk about being held, and that is that a comfort for you?
sure, yes. I think we all need to be held, and we also all have the capacity to hold ourselves as well. Um,
Mm,
and yeah, it's a comfort for me for sure.
yeah, I love that. I love that expression of it.
Yeah,
Uh, to say it.
when I'm alone, I sleep clutching a pillow for sure. I wrap myself around a pillow.
I have my cat will like wants to be held,
Mhm.
and so I will hold him
Yeah.
in the same way because I need that as well.
There is
Uh,
something about holding the act of holding somehow is simultaneously the act of being held, like the experience of being held. It's symbiotic.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely, yeah.
Hmm.
Um, that's like touching too. I love to be touched, but
Hmm.
also the experience of touching is the same. You
Yeah.
know, um, in the album you have that kind of vocal cry throughout.
Mm.
How did you develop that?
Like the little lilt kind of.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
I suppose that's just from growing up, maybe from growing up in Texas and being surrounded by Western swing. And my first girlfriend's mom was the national yodeling champion of the United States 2 years in a row. And I took some yodeling lessons from her as a kid. And yeah, but also I think it's just in the, maybe just that whole world comes as a natural reaction to the environment to a certain degree, I think, from like the creeks and from just the sunlight in Texas and the way things move. I think people are just responding to that.
I was gonna say yodel, but
Hmm.
I didn't know how you would take that or not.
It's
And
okay.
and
I really have no formal training in yodeling. I did take a couple lessons from my friend, but for the most part, it's just there's something in that lilt and that those cracks and those turns that feels like like a creek to me. It feels like a spring creek. It feels like a river, or liquid, and it feels vitalizing, and yeah, it's just what comes naturally to me, I suppose.
Yeah, and I think so too. Even like I love your lyrics, but also without hearing them, you hear that it's an immediacy in the emotion of it.
Mm,
You
yeah,
know what's going on when you hear it.
thank you.
Um, on the album, you have two versions of Two Moons, which I
Yeah.
think is so great because I remember going to I got a record store over here, Rushmore Records, my favorite place.
Nice.
And I remember Dan was talking one time about he had like a he had a compilation of the Beach Boys, one of their songs, and he had like it was like 200 versions of the song.
Oh wow.
And he
Yeah.
was like he loves listening to that to see all the iterations.
Yeah.
And I think like as if you're listening to a song, it can sound like, oh, this is a fully formed idea, this is the only
Mhm.
way that it could happen. And hearing it in two ways it was such a great take of these things, and the ways that you change them can say something totally different.
Yeah.
Is that why you wanted to have it on, or what was your thoughts on beyond it?
Yeah, for sure. I think, yeah, it's so easy to fall into perceiving a specific recording as the quintessential singular version of that song as an entity, where in truth it's just a completely, you know subjective moment of that song, with so many factors involved. um, and so, yeah, in some ways I wanted to remind people of that, but most importantly it was just what came naturally from how we went into the session. We recorded every morning for a week, or we recorded in the morning, we played every song once, and then we took a 7-hour break, and then we recorded a set in the evening for 7 days. And we really only let ourselves play a song once or twice before moving on for each set. And the idea was to kind of um, catalyze the feeling of a first take, and like the spontaneity of a first take, instead of dwelling too much on perfection. And um, so part of including that song on the or two versions of that song on the record was also to bring people into that process as well, to include them in the fact that, like, we were we were changing some element of our setup for every set. We were taking different approaches into the songs every time we sat down with them, in order to try to, like, keep ourselves scared and, like, on our toes, and to maintain some element of danger and reaction to that.
Yeah, I think that really comes through, and it's like it's got a looseness,
Yeah,
you know, and I really like that, like
I don't think
including
we
that.
even realized Sarla was recording. We were just kind of goofing around, and then record her. Yeah.
That is how it sounds.
Mm.
Well, what's Big Thief up to these days?
Well, we've been working on new music as well in the absence of touring. Um,
Have you?
yeah, we've been working quite a bit, actually. Um, yeah.
Are you together, or how have you been working?
Well, James Grifchini, our drummer, lives in Los Angeles, so we were able to meet up and make music together, and plot. Um, Adrian is more of a um, nomad, and Max lives in his home town of Tel Aviv, Israel. But we've met up quite a bit during the quarantine, and to make new music, to work on new songs and recordings. Yeah.
That's fun.
Mhm.
Where have you been doing it?
We've worked in some of our best friends' studios, and like up in the Catskill Mountains of New York State, and here in Topanga Canyon, where I live, at a studio here, and up in Colorado at the top of a mountain up above Telluride, and then down in Arizona and Tucson. So I don't want to say too much because it's still kind of under wraps, but yeah, we're definitely working on some new things.
That sounds fun. I always love
Yeah,
hearing how the locations uh, change sound. I think on your
yeah,
last couple albums they were fun.
for sure.
Um, well, what's a song that you have been listening to lately?
Mm. I've been listening to actually a lot of wordless music. I've been listening to a lot of ambient music during the pandemic, which has
Nice.
felt like really appropriate and healing within this space of spending so much time alone at home, and moving throughout my day in kind of a wordless space, um, without community. And I've been listening to a lot of Juliana Barwick's Nepenthe, and Grouper's Dream Loss,
Oh yeah.
and William Basinski's Disintegration Loops, and um, Careless Coverdale, and artists like that, and just kind of I've been waking up to them in the morning as my alarm clock and spending a lot of my day. And it's nice because I can write, and I can even play guitar along with them without them feeling like too too pushing me in one direction or the other.
Yeah, I have as well. Can we pick one of those to talk about, because I would love to then like play it
Sure.
out of this interview. So what's one of those that you really that kind of stands out to you?
We could talk about Juliana Barwick's Nepenthe because,
Yeah, I don't
yeah,
know anything about that.
Juliana Barwick is an incredible kind of ambient electronic musician, and this album in particular was made at my friend Alex Summers' home in Iceland, or his home studio in Iceland. Who's Alex is another ambient musician who I really adore, and I've actually been listening to his record a lot, which is I think he's just now releasing and putting out some singles for. So check that one out as well.
Okay.
But Alex was a part of Sigur Rós for quite a long time, um, and yeah, they made that record together in his home studio in Iceland, and you can just really feel that space, um, that sense of openness and serenity there.
I think that there is like kind of like any genre, there is like when you listen to music for airports and you're like, this is
Mm,
ambient, and then you listen to disintegration loops and it's like, okay, this is a different genre. Or
mhm.
it's like you kind of like have a you like jazz, you kind of like think that it's one thing, and then there's like all these different things.
Yeah, for
What's
sure,
like Juliana Borwick's like, what is her like brand of
for
ambient?
sure. I can't claim to be too. I'm not very well informed on like the
Sure.
I'm sure the depth of subtlety in ambient music, but I would describe it as very like angelic, and
Mm.
it feels, yeah, just effervescent and like really lightweight and just moving and beautiful and like, yeah, really sweet. There's not a lot of darkness in it. It just feels like really lightweight and, yeah, pure. It feels purifying. That's like probably the one word. If I could choose one word, Nepenthe feels like just really purifying.
I love that.
Yeah.
Um, okay, that's it. Those
Hell
are
yeah.
that's what I had.
Nice one.
Thank you for Two Saviors. I it's the album I've listened to the most,
Ah,
and it's
thank you.
just
That
like
means so much.
it's so comforting and nice, and yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it's so weird putting out a record right now and not being able to tour it, because I've put out, 8 records at this point or something, and there's always this immediate reflection and like a community and touring and, sharing with an audience, and it's a vulnerable process putting out an album and not being able to share it in that way. But so it's so good to hear that it's still making an impact on people, and conversations like this help me like move on from it basically. you know.
Yeah, I mean, I can't. I mean that's a great point where it does it has got to just seem like once it's out there, it is the touring gives you a chance to tour
Yeah.
it, to talk
Yeah.
about it, to have it, and um
Internalize the songs and like move basically in the long run, move on from them. Like touring helps you kind of like
mm,
let go of the songs completely as a release. But so this has been a real exercise in like really in the true sense of the word releasing these songs. Like I put them out into the world, and then there's I mean, of course there's the reflection of the internet and conversations like these, which are so valuable, but beyond that, it's like it feels kind of just like a real release. Like suddenly it's gone, like
yeah,
postpartum. And so, but I'm trying to embrace it as a new approach to releasing an album, and instead just immediately starting to work on my next one and writing new songs. And but still, it's always good to hear. And I think that this album in particular is probably really valuable for this time, because I do think it's soft and like
yeah.
I think yeah, I think it can help people right now, especially.
I have just been returning to it
Oh,
as a comfort. It
thank you.
is
That means a
comfort.
lot. Yeah,
Yeah,
thank you. It was, I mean, the whole album was like comfort. Like to write it was a process of comfort for myself. So makes sense. But yeah,
good. It comes
cool.
across.
Right
All
on.
right. Thank you, Buck.
Thank you
Uh,
very much,
have a
Justin.
good day, and I'll see you next time you come through Milwaukee.
Yeah, maybe I'll rent your house one of these days.
Yeah.
Next
All
time
right.
I'll give you more notes. All right.
Yeah.
Peace.
See ya.